Hi everyone, for tonight's Nightcap and review, I'm having water and I'll be reviewing Burning Red by Trinity Slain. This is a book I received as an ARC, but of course I'm going to give my honest opinion. These are the tropes and these are the content warnings. I will say this is the author's debut novel, which of course we always want to encourage and applaud authors who put themselves out there. It takes so much courage to do it, so much work to put a book together that I'm in awe of anyone who does that. So I do want to put that out there. This book I'm giving 3.75. It was a solid book. I did enjoy it. I do want to find out what happens in the storyline, but I do think there were some areas that could have been tweaked that could have made it a 4 for me. But before we get into all of that, let's start with what this book's about. So what's this book about? Well, this book starts off with the male main character, Garon, I think is how it's pronounced, basically in captivity. He has lived his whole life, or as long as he can remember, in captivity, being tested, being put through exercises. Basically, he lives in a hellscape. He's basically just giving up and just taking it for what it is. However, he soon has someone put into the cell next to him, Jackson, who starts to engage with him, starts telling him stories, and basically just becoming his friend. Basically, not necessarily giving him the will to live, but the ability to hope, something that he had lost. Him and Jackson start to try and plan a way out of this hellhole. And really, Garon is just kind of planning the bags ahead to really get Jackson out of there, because there are people he cares about, people he loves, people who miss him. And he sees that if Jackson can get out and get help and destroy this place, even if he doesn't make it out alive, he knows he at least accomplished something. And eventually, Jackson and Garon do get their chance to escape, along with some other subjects who have been in the facility as well. And they're making their escape, but eventually they realize, or Jackson realizes, that someone needs to serve as a distraction so that some can get away and hopefully bring back help. Jackson tells Garon to get out with some of the other subjects and to find his sister and get her to safety. And so Jackson and a couple other subjects basically provide the distraction so the others can get away. Garon is obviously torn up because it wasn't supposed to be him that gets out. It was supposed to be Jackson. Jackson, again, who has loved ones, and Garon, who can't even remember any time before being in this lab and tested on. It is in thanks to Jackson's sacrifice that Garon and the others are able to escape. However, Garon's not going to forget his promise to Jackson and makes his way back to find Maxine to get her to safety. Maxine being Jackson's sister. The thing is that while he was in the labs, he was tested on, he was experimented on, he was put through these treatments that have made him something other than human. He knows he's a monster, feels as if he's a monster. And when he's around Maxine, those monstrous traits come to the forefront because that monster wants to claim Maxine as his. But in some ways, Garon may in fact be too late. Maxine's life is spiraling out of control. She's recently been bitten by an animal with an unknown disease that has spread an infection to her that is changing her. She doesn't know what's happening, but she is changing. She has also recently confronted the man who has been the bane of her family's existence, and in that confrontation, she unalived him. Thing is, he may have been one of the few people to know where her missing brother is. And if that wasn't enough, a strange man appears telling her tales of a place of horror that was holding him and her brother captive. This place of torture, experiments, caves full of monsters. And he tells her time is running out, that they have to work together to rescue her brother and the other subjects and burn this organization to the ground. But even with all that, she has this attraction to him that cannot be denied. So as they work together, can she fight this attraction? Can she save her brother? Read to find out. So what are my thoughts on this book? Well, again, I'm giving it 3.75. I did enjoy this book, and I do think it was a solid book, especially with it being the author's debut novel. This book does leave on a cliffhanger, so keep that in mind as it's an ongoing series. I will say this book, as I was reading it, did remind me a lot of Umbrella Corporation, Raccoon City, with a corporation or organization that is in charge of basically one town, has a secret lab where they're performing experiments that unalive some, enhance others, and change others. So I was definitely reminded of that as I read this book. Now, for the main characters, Garon being the male main character, my heart just broke for him and everything he had been through, with him losing hope and basically just existing, if you want to call it that. But thankfully, he gets hope back and is doing everything he can to bring down this organization, and you just cheer him on. Then you have Maxine, which it's interesting to read a female main character with my name. I don't see it often. With her, I didn't necessarily love her the whole time throughout the book. I definitely liked her a lot more towards the end as her strength and resilience grew and she became a stronger character. But I will say at times she kind of reminded me of the character in a horror movie who goes to investigate a noise in a dark basement where the light doesn't work and you're screaming, "Don't go in the basement." She just made choices that were very questionable, especially considering how she was raised and who raised her. It just didn't quite fit for me. Now, I will say the chemistry between Garon and Maxine was there, but I didn't really feel a lot of it until more towards the middle end of the book. They do meet early on, are intimate, and things happen that cause them to separate. But the time that they are together, I didn't necessarily feel the chemistry or understand why they were being intimate at that time. I think that's due in part to the writing. At certain points, the writing did feel a little rushed, and I was left feeling like I had missed something. I would go back and read something and still kind of had that feeling, no matter how many times I read it. But overall, I would say this book is pretty well written. There are just minor tweaks that I think as the storyline continues and the author continues to write, that this will just smooth itself out. It was still an easy read and an easy page turner for me. It was just certain points, again, felt rushed. In the end, reading is subjective. I did enjoy this book, and I would encourage others to give it a try for themselves. I do think certain things will smooth themselves out as the plotline develops, and I am interested in knowing what happens in the next book. This book, however, will be available March 21st, so give it a download, give it a try. I hope everyone has a good night and happy readings.